Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, well, guests, they are sometimes like buses. You wait around for ages for a guest and then boom, two come along at once. We have dipped into the Straight to the Apex pool and brought up another fine guest for you to join me on this Darkest Timeline special episode. That's right, James Stainforth is here with me to talk about everything. We're talking mental health, that's way up there. We're talking golf, gym, how James remembers meeting Mark and Tony. All that and more in this special episode. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Main thing, people, share the podcast around. I love the Straight to the Apex podcast. I love the guys that do it, and I want them to be loved by everybody. So share this podcast around. Get the names out there. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing, if you know what I mean. Right, enough from me. Here's more of me with James. So here we go. This is CookieCast, Darkest Timeline special episode with James Stainforth.
Recording in progress.
The lady says recording's in progress. I'm waiting. I can see blue bars. I can see it. It's there. Allegedly it's there. If you're listening at home, you think I'm just talking to myself right now. For you lovely people watching on the YouTubes, you will see that in part 2 of our guests on the podcast, we've dipped into another podcast again and brought up, this time we had the comic relief. We've now got the looks from the Straight to the Apex podcast. James Stainforth, how are you, sir?
I am very well, actually, and I think that is the first time I've been able to answer that question honestly as well.
Well, there we go. We'll be unpicking that shortly. So we absolutely didn't have any technical issues. We got logged on, we got straight into it. We didn't sit for 28 minutes while I banged my head against the screen going, why doesn't this work? So we didn't lose any time. We're fresh as a daisy. I am not stressed out. I'm not drinking whatever this is. Delicious. So, if anybody checked out Tony's episode, a lot of people did check out Tony's episode, you'll know that the Formula 1 podcast has entered its off-season, and I'm like, I am not letting this resource go. Got to get in there. Got to get some juicy guest spots out of these gentlemen. So, as I was explaining to James off air, the same but different. So let's start with our icebreaker question.
Oh wow, straight into okay.
James.
Okay, let's do this. Yeah.
What is the best fruit?
What is the best fruit?
Yes.
Oh wow. I'm gonna go with apple.
I've got a theory about apples.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you my theory. My theory is this. If you get a good apple, it can literally be the highlight of your day. You're like, that's a good apple. It's given me everything I need. Everything I possibly needed from the apple situation.
Yeah.
But if you get a bad apple, if you get,
you know
the dusty apple, you bite into that apple, it's the worst possible thing, because you've signed the contract to say it's apple time, and I need good apple. and then it turns around and slaps you in the mouth. And there, right there, I want apple to be the winner. I want it to be up there. I want it to be the daddy of the fruits. Daddy or chips, it's apple. I've been burnt too many times, James. This is the problem. You get a big red apple, bite into it and it's just dust. You're like, fuck my life.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I say this on our podcast as well, pretty much every week whenever Tony starts talking. But yeah, I've got to agree. I've got to, because I can't stand green apples. It's always got to be a good red, shiny looking apple. And you get that first bite, and it's juicy. It's everything you want it to be. It's brilliant. But then you've got those days, like you said, where you bite into it, and all of a sudden you feel like you're just eating mulch.
Yeah.
Like
to me,
the stage of recycling paper, where it's just.
To me, the red apple is like putting 4 bullets in the gun. It's like you've got a higher chance of a bad time with a red apple. At least with a green apple, there's less of the dusty option. Which is the shiny one? Is it Granny Smith?
I think so. Yeah.
I can never remember, because then there's the green one that's the equivalent of the red one. Like, you get a big green one, a little green one. I think you've got a better chance, but red's where you want to be. If you get a good red, you are off to the races. You are off to the races. If you get a bad one, you just start questioning every decision you've ever made in life. You're just like, when I was 11, and was it the right move? And what brought me to this point eating this apple? So there we go. We like an icebreaker, Anybody who listens to or watches the Formula One podcast will know that you guys absolutely crush it in the podcast world. But over here in the Darkest Timeline world, these people are just subjected to me week in, week out, being miserable, talking about bad driving and Christmas shopping and everything in between. So we like to liven it up when we've got a guest. So I don't know which order to do things, because obviously we've laid some groundwork. Tony got in there first and set the scene. So I need to know if certain stories can be confirmed.
Well, anything Tony's told is bull.
But I also thought, I don't want to just go, these are the questions I asked Tony, now I'm going to ask you. So I thought, easiest way, just switch them around. So, question number 1 for you, sir, is this. How long have you been a Formula One fan?
Oh. Right, this might surprise you. And I've got to kind of do the math now by working out how long I have known Charlie. That is about 12 years.
I could just imagine Charlie. I could just imagine Charlie listening right now, going, "Go on." How many years? Go on. How many years is it? Go on.
Luckily, she's upstairs, which is actually just directly above me now, so she's probably laying on the floor with a glass tumbler against it as well.
What's he saying about me?
But no, always watched it in the background. It was always on, kind of thing. But Charlie was we always call Charlie the guru when it comes to F1 on straight to the apex. But yeah, she's religiously watched Formula One with her dad when she was a little girl and everything. She went to all the races with her dad, and I can't remember what he used to do, but he used to be a doctor for a few races as well, some of the local races and stuff like that. So nice. Obviously she did like track days and stuff like that. So she's always been into it. Obviously when I met Charlie, I was, I suppose, technically kind of forced into it at first, having to watch it because Charlie wanted to watch it. But Yeah, it was one night she was clearing her ear out with a cotton bud or something, and then she realised she'd got the cotton wool stuck in her ear. And it was, I want to say it was the Mexican Grand Prix, because it was obviously late at night, it was like 9 o'clock or something like that. And she needed to go to the ear, nose and throat. And I didn't want to go because I was enjoying the race. So from that point I was like, oh shit, I'm actually enjoying this now. When I was younger I used to think, oh, it's just a bunch of guys just driving around, it must be the most boring thing to watch live. But yeah, it's really not.
The one that always gets me is NASCAR. I appreciate it for what it is. I appreciate that it's got this huge following, and like when you see the cars up close, the cars are massive.
Yeah.
I'd gone into, I think it was like, weirdly, it was like the M&M shop in Vegas, and they had the M&M NASCAR parked in there, and they're huge. But ultimately, what, 500 times or something? It's a bit like, oh, I wonder if they're going to go round that corner. It was always like, at least F1 had a bit of, and I know how much we all love like Monaco and stuff. So at least 12 years, because I was like, he's going to be like, how many seasons are we doing the podcast? 2 seasons. So yeah, 2 years. Like I got drafted in by Mark, and now I watch F1 every Sunday.
I had to do some serious research in Series 1. It was unreal.
I had to read a book about Ayrton Senna. What was that all about?
Just plug me into a chair or something, and in 30 seconds I'll learn Kung Fu.
I've heard about Mark and his chair. So I'm now going to double back. So the big question is, I asked Tony how long Tony had known yourself and Mark, and he told us all the story, and I could relate to the story he told. So how accurate was Tony's story? And I get a feeling that you might have known Mark longer than you've known Tony.
Ooh. See, my story of meeting Tony was very similar. The only thing I can't remember was he said we met in a church. I don't remember that. So my recollection of it was, obviously, my wife, Mark's wife, Tony's wife, they all worked at the same place for years and years and years, and there was a work get together kind of thing. I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was like an Easter meal kind of thing, always to celebrate that hit a certain threshold. Something, the usual kind of things that I want to celebrate. I went, oh look, we did this in the budget, yeah. And I'm not a big fan of people. There's friends, family, stuff like that. I'm fine with, and they know me, I know them, absolutely fine. But general public, not a big fan of. Hi, general public. And yeah, so Charlie said, "Oh, I've got this meal to go to, and we can bring partners and stuff like that. And do you want to come?" And I was a little bit iffy, and Charlie knows what I can be like. So and Charlie said, "Well, look, Kate is taking our other half, and so's Beth. They're both really good lads. You might like them, you never know." So I'm not going to lie, I went there a little bit reluctantly. I was sat there, and then Katie and Mark came in, and Mark sat quite close to me. So we started talking, as I want to say Mark started it really, because I sometimes find it, believe it or not, I find it difficult to start conversations with people I've never met. So I think Mark kind of started it. Me and Mark started waffling on for a little bit, and that's when Tony came in, or how I said it on our podcast after he'd done the Darkest Timeline. As always, you was late. He was going, "Oh, you two were sat over there, sat together, and I'm sat right over there." It's like, yeah, he was 20 minutes late. It was the only chair left. But yeah, we all got to start talking, and you know, we did have a laugh, and then you know we had a few more drinks, and then we started doing like takeaway nights and game nights. So you know we'd go to one of the hours, we'd have takeaway, we'd play games, and yeah, it just went on from there. But I remember it as a restaurant. He remembers it as a church. There may be some ground in between.
So when Mark finally comes on, he's like, "Nah, it was a McDonald's." They're all wrong.
He'll be like, they're both lying.
They're all wrong. They've all got it all mixed up. It's all kinds of wrong. So to again slip in a completely different question. Obviously, we've had you on as a guest for the NFL podcast. Now we couldn't get Tony anywhere near the NFL podcast. I believe some sort of phrase along the lines of those American sports. So, how long have you been into the NFL?
So the NFL's more new to me. Still kind of getting to grips with it. It was another one of them sports where I watched it once and I didn't understand it. Like I said about Formula One, it's always just guys driving around the track repeatedly. It's the most boring thing to watch live. And the first game I watched was, I think it was the first time they played it here in the UK. So what would that have been, about 15 or so years back, something like that?
A few years ago now.
And I was making a big deal about it. So I was still living at home with the rents back then. So my stepdad put it on, and I thought, oh yeah, let's give it a go. You know, it must be great. And I'm watching it. Obviously, I'm a rugby league fan, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, it's only a 60-minute game. Fine. Why does it take 4 hours?
Why were you 4 hours later?
Yeah, I just found myself getting more and more frustrated watching it. I was like, all right, so they've passed the ball, they've been tackled, and they've stopped. Okay, and then they repeat, and then they repeat, and I'm like, and I think it's the 2-minute warning. That was what got it for me. They went, oh, in 2-minute warning, and the commentators go, oh, the 2-minute warning means, you know, there's 2 minutes before the break, and they took a break. And I was like, so you get a 2-minute message saying, oh, in 2 minutes, you know, it's half
2
time.
minutes you get a break, so take
here's
a
a
break.
rest.
Yeah.
And I think at that point I was like, oh no, I'm done, and I left.
It's one of those things that it's so much more frustrating watching it live. Like if you go to the games and you're like, what's going on? Where are they going? We're in the middle of a play. What's happening? 2-minute warning. It's like, and just get on with it.
But no, I got into it more recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, really. And it was my boss. I mean, he has trouble sleeping, so he'll wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning most night, and I can do the same kind of thing. And that's when he really got into it. And when he found out he was when he decided he was going to go watch one of the games in London, he thought, shit, I best go pick a team. So he picked the Raiders just randomly. And I said to him, I don't understand. I don't know what the gist is. It just goes on for too long. And he said, well, look at it as like rugby, but crossed with chess. You know, you make your move and then you sit there and you plan your next move, but you're also planning there. And also like, okay. So yeah, and so I got into it from that. Mark sent me some random link saying, find out who your NFL team is. You remember when Facebook used to do that?
Yeah.
So I went through the survey and everything else. You know, you like your underdog, you like this, you like that. And straight away I went, right, so yeah, you're the Arizona Cardinals. I was like, all right, so yeah. Got into it, followed it a little bit, stuff like that. Been to a couple of games in London. I mean, the games in London are incredible. But still getting used to it. It's just tricky, the time of it.
Yeah, there's so much about it. That I like and enjoy. There's so much about it that just frustrates the hell out of me. I remember the days of staying up for the Super Bowl feeling like I was the only person in the entire UK who was sat there with a scarf on and a hat on, going, "Yay, Super Bowl!" And this was back in the days when it sometimes started like 1 a.m, and the Super Bowl used to run for 5 hours, and you're like, "I've got to go to work soon," because that was in the days when I truly believed I could still man it, because at 4 o'clock I'd have a Jaeger bomb, and that'd sort me right out. And then there was the year that I went to work having had too many Jaeger bombs, and it wasn't that I was like hungover or anything. I just felt like I was obviously still riding the Red Bull, and then it just went, and I'm out of here. See you later. And I went, and that was the year I went, I'm never working after the Super Bowl again. Now, almost simultaneously at the same time, the NFL was like, the Super Bowl takes too long. We need to start, and we need to start it earlier. And for like everybody around the world, we need to make it like more manageable. So there was like years where it was like it was only on for 3 hours, and it was done and dusted, and I was in bed at this time, and got up and went to the gym, and then went to work, and all that sort of stuff. So it varies. Obviously, you've got your East Coast, West Coast thing for the start time, so that can sometimes be an issue. But yeah, it's very much a sport that you can say I love it and hate it, and be right. You'd be like, I love it and I hate it, and that's okay. But yeah, we've done the pick a team thing. We've done it with Paul a few times, and it always comes up with a different team every time, and he's like, nah. So, time to start getting into the weeds here. It's time to start getting into the thick of it. So, you're a Formula One fan. You're there. You're like, I love me some Formula One. And somebody says, have you ever considered doing a Formula One podcast? And you said either yes or no. So, take me through the fan to podcast host journey in your own words, I suppose.
Oh, okay. This might get a bit deep then, but that's kind of the point of this podcast. So
Well,
yeah, okay. So COVID happened, and that was when me, Mark, and Tony kind of lost touch a little bit. It wasn't that I was avoiding each other or anything else like that. Obviously, it just got difficult. Takeaway nights kind of ended, games nights, all that kind of stuff started to go away. The Christmas meal, I'd always do like a Christmas spread here, they'd all come here, and that kind of went away as well. But as well as that, I had stuff going on at work, and I had stuff going on within my family and stuff like that. So I was starting to go back into what I called the pit, but I didn't know. Same as last time, didn't know I was in there until shit. Yeah, I'm in a pit here, and started to work my way out again. And that's when all of a sudden Mark messaged us, which was nice because we did message each other every now and then. So we started chatting, having a quick catch up, and then he said, I've been talking to our neighbour, and he's got a friend who does a podcast. I was like, all right, okay. And obviously Tony was involved as well. And he said, yeah, so can we all have a call? So we could quickly call each other, and he said, so yeah, he's got onto Spotify, and he's been asked if he can get more content out there, and he wants to get a Formula One podcast. But he doesn't do much about Formula One, and he's got a lot of other stuff that he's going on with as well. So it was like, so he's asked me if I want to do it. I was like, okay. And he said, but I don't want to do it on my own. So he was like, do you guys want to tag in? So straight away we was like, yeah, all right. So we arranged a call on Zoom to check that it worked, but also just to properly chat about it. And I'm not gonna lie, we just chat shit. for a good half an hour, pardon the French. Just absolutely chatted everything, just laughing, winding up Tony, like same as we do on the podcast. And then we started talking about it and was like, this actually might be good. And then that's when Mark started saying, well, we've got to be the three of us because we just bounce off each other. And I think he'd mentioned that you wouldn't mind coming on and helping with the hosting and stuff like that. And Mark was a little bit like, well, let's see how we do first. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. But through that podcast and everything else, I found myself getting better as well, which is why I absolutely love doing it now. And you can probably tell. I would say, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's no point going back to the beginning and listening to it all now because you know how the seasons end and stuff like that. But if you were, you would probably notice a change in my behaviour. From the start, I was probably very quiet, very professional about what I said and stuff like that. And now I'm just this guy who, well, as soon as Mark presses record, he probably panics about, oh shit, what's James going to say this week?
I sit because, like, I've made no secret of it. I can't stress it enough. It's one of my favourite podcasts. As far as I went through this with Tony. As far as my Formula One history is concerned, it's been very up and down, and then over the last however many years, I think when they started, and this will sound awful, but when they started making it safer, I lost more and more interest in it. Like when they started putting like all the different safety things in, I was like, it's just not the same. It's not the same. And I think that's kind of when I started moving away from it. I can tell you this much. You can ask my good lady about a time that she and a friend of mine sat watching the Formula One in the hospital whilst I was absolutely dying from borderline alcohol poisoning on a birthday night out, and that was the story. That was the story when they got called through. The race was nearly over, and they were going to have to miss the end of the race. So, Formula One's always sort of been there. So, I kind of had an idea. So when like you say, when it came up for like the hosting duties, I was talking to our mutual friend, the host of the Getting Over podcast, and I was like, well, do they want me to host? Because I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to dust off the old Formula One files and reboot that side of the brain, and he was like, no. They're going to do it themselves. And I was like, cool. It's going to be our first podcast that none of us are involved in. And I was like, with any podcast, I mean, if you go back to the start of anything that's been on CookieCast to now, there have been podcasts that have come and gone. We had like a zombie role-playing one. There was one, we used to do a beer podcast. A mate of mine started his own podcast that was through the network, did X number of episodes, and then pandemic hit. He wasn't prepared to do it like we're doing this now. That was the end of that. He always wanted to do it in person. He wanted to do it in the same room, sort of thing, and that just killed that podcast. So the fact that I get to listen to it every week, one of my simultaneously favourite and apprehensive things is when I hear, sat in the office, I hear James's voice going, this is the week, guys, this is the week I'm going to get cancelled, kicked off the podcast and edited all in the same episode. I'm doing it. Here we go. Let's get crazy. And I'm just like, okay, if I get home, I can pull the episode down, because at this point in time, though both the audio and the video episodes are sat there just waiting, and I'm like, if I can get home, I can pull the episodes down, chop it all up, sandwich it back together, make it so it actually makes some form of sense. Then, how quickly can I get it back? Maybe it'll have to go. And I'm just sat there like, it could be today. It could be today. And then I'm always texting like, better luck next time, James. So yes, you have gone from a certain place, and I imagine that's a certain place from, for want of a better way of putting it, from a mental perspective, to now this just I am gonna become the most edited man in podcast history. But yeah, not today, I'm afraid. Or maybe it's today. Something I've got a question at the end of my list, which I never did ask Tony. But my list was like this, and I was like, I just need some pointers because I imagine me and Tony can have a conversation more than just me firing questions. So I might bring that question forward and ask you. So you've had two series of the podcast. Hands down, one of the tightest formats. I'm a bit of a... I like a podcast that flows, but I also like one that's got a really good, like at this point we do this bit, and at this point we do this bit, and at this point we do this bit, and then we end with this. So I like one that flows, but also flows with a, and we've got like, as you've seen, the NFL one goes very much in the same vein as the Formula One podcast, in that sense of you do what happened in the games last week, what happened, what stats have you got, what any news, and then you move into the next round of games. What games are coming up, what do people think is going to happen, anything else, and you're out clean, sort of thing. So, as a third of the hosting team for the Straight to the Apex podcast, what's next? What's next for Straight to the Apex? More the same? Are you going to start next season? Is it going to be a different costume each week? Is it going to be funny glasses Friday, or I don't know? Is it going to be more the same because it's a super tight formula that works? Do you see it changing? Do you see any differences?
I don't see it change. I mean, if you've got something that works, you don't want to mess with it too much.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially in this season, well, I've noticed one of the things I keep doing now is I've got a different name on every episode, and sometimes I've got two different names in the episode. I think I started doing that just to wind up Mark.
Honestly,
and then from I've started something now. I've got to keep doing this, and sometimes I'm panicking. I'm trying to join a meeting. I'm like, shit, I need a name.
I honestly, I cannot wait until I get Mark on, because I've already built his list of questions, and a lot of his questions centre around, why did James and Tony think this? Because there's a running theme, and it's all pointed in a particular direction. Like I say, at the end of the day, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And from my perspective, as a listener, as a fan, as a I don't know if it's like a editor, producer, I don't know what you would call it. I make it, I make it available to the public. More the same. It's one of those, my goal is to get you guys like live boots on the ground at the races, doing live versions of the podcast, because everyone else sees what I see when I listen week in, week out, and it's like, we've got to get, you need to be FIA sponsored, and I'm not talking about the other FIA that was on last week's podcast.
Females in association with Straight to the Apex.
Honestly, I was listening to that, just tears. I'm like, this. It was so professionally done. It was so perfectly done. I was just like, this is it. This is absolute peak content. This is fantastic. I was just like,
It was
just,
absolutely unreal.
just well done. Unfortunately, from my end, I'm being told that the technological gods have informed us that we need to take a short break. And I ain't even got halfway through my questions, so I already know that this is going to be a juicy one. Join me and James in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And James, I'll see you very shortly.
See you shortly.
Recording in progress.
It's that apprehensive moment where you're like, we had all those technical issues. Has it been? No, we are good. We are back. We are back. Some people might think, huh? Sorry?
I know how you feel with that. I always get nervous whenever we start recording. Because I always get that message saying, your host can do this, blah, blah, blah. And I always panic that I'm going to click the wrong button and leave the meeting there.
Yeah, I'd like to say I've learned from my mistakes. As you will know, that is absolutely not true. When I'm sitting there going, the podcast is fine. You guys are all mental. It's like, we sound like robots. It's like, I listened to it today. It was fine. What are you on about? Hang on a minute. You sound like... I'm just going to put the computer on. I may have realised what went wrong. Damn it. It was fine because that one, the wrong one, had many views on it, and we had to lose that one. It doesn't haunt me. We've had the episode where I've got 10 minutes in and gone, I didn't start the audio re-recording in the second part, so that's all wasted. And I definitely haven't done that more than once.
That's painful.
So, anyway, the point is, allegedly, we are recording both audio and video in about an hour's time when I'm going, we'll know that's not true. But at this point, we've got a, blind faith and all that.
It all looks promising. I've got a little red spot there on the corner, so looks good. Looks good.
Me too. So, if for some reason you decided, I'm going to tune into this podcast halfway through, you missed all the juicy goss. Go back and check out the first half. I don't know. I don't know who would do that, but hey. So, like I said, I wanted some similar questions to what I asked Tony, but I didn't want to just ask you the same questions. A, it's lazy. It's lazy podcasting. B, I wanted to show you that I valued you as a guest on the show. So I was like, I want James to see that I've done my work. I've done my little.
And
work.
you're right. And it would be lazy as well, Tony. It's the same as Tony picking my predictions in the last race. Just no. I mean, it was clever. I got what he was saying, but
I listened to it twice and I couldn't decide. I was like, part of me wants to go with it's genius. It's just stone cold genius. And the other part of me wants to go with no, that's not on. That's not on. He should have points struck. And it was all made whole. It was all made right in the end by the fact that the FIA got involved, and that's what we wanted to see. Honestly, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. It was fantastic. Also, early on, in fact, I think that's part of what got mentioned. The forfeit was the issue. That a forfeit was mentioned and was never decided. Early doors, there was a forfeit that was mentioned. It was like, if you've got to get the straight to the Apex logo tattooed, and I was like, come again, because that sounds amazing.
Did we say that?
Episode 2, I'm pretty sure there was a conversation about tattoos, and I was like, you've come to the right place. So I'm like, I hope they pick that. I am definitely going to be there for that one.
Luckily, Beth didn't. Because I know halfway through we started saying, right, the winner from the Ladies' League kind of thing, they'll pick the forfeit. Guys,
when I heard that, I was like, that's a good one. I said, anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching right now, go back because I put the video of the forfeit from last season. Was it on the first episode of season 2? I think that's... or was it the last...
No, it was like a Christmas special kind
yeah,
of thing.
there was one where basically right at the end there's the video of the forfeit. If you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it. I was proper impressed with the fact that it had all gone through and stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely getting tagged on. So I asked Tony a question, and I'm going to ask you a question, but it's going to be ever so slightly different. In all the history of Formula One, if you could pick one team from the dawn of Formula One time to the end of this season to be what you consider the team that represents Formula One as a sport, which team are you coming down on?
You see, if you'd have asked Tony, he'd probably say Ferrari because they're prestigious. And it's right, they are. They're the team. They're the team that everyone grows up wanting to drive for. Oh, me, I would probably say I am torn between Williams and McLaren.
So, from a personal perspective, I'm with you on 2 points there. At the end of the day, Ferrari has to be in the picture. There is no way you can have a conversation that features the words Formula One where that at some point you're not going to fall on Ferrari. But the McLaren sort of...
they've always been there.
Yeah, I suppose longevity, that whole from start to finish, you've got each sport becomes bigger than itself when it gets a story. You know, when you've got weirdly use wrestling as an example. When you think wrestling, you've got Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. These are these are names that surpass the sport itself. They transcend the sport. If you're talking golf, you're not going to talk golf and not mention the name Tiger Woods. It's that kind of thing. And I think because Ferrari transcends Formula One anyway, it's that kind of, when you were little, you wanted a Ferrari no matter what. I will always have that soft spot for the Testarossa in the 80s, and Magnum PI and all that sort of stuff. So Ferrari's always been there, but if you're really dialing it into the Formula One stuff, I think you have got that. McLaren's got to be there. It's that.
There's so much to. I mean, there's a lot of history there. If we're talking Williams, it's a family thing, and it's gone on for aeons, so to speak. But I mean, this season alone with McLaren, it pretty much sums them up. You kind of forget that they're there, and sometimes you wonder why they're there. Like we did at the start of the season, we was making the jokes of they ain't going nowhere, and then by the end of the season, there was in for contention for.
They have got to win Most Improved Player award this season, because there was the whole where they started, where they finished. I suppose is the best way to look at it. They weren't a contender at the start, like you've just said. They weren't a contender at the start of the season. Come the end of the season, they were. It's as simple as that. They've obviously made enough improvements to put themselves in that picture. Was it last season there was all the porpoising?
Yeah.
And week in, week out, I'm like, I need to know. I'm listening like, I need to know what porpoising is. What is it, and why is it such a problem? And I'm like, is it this?
You know,
Well,
is it?
I spent most of the first season of Straight to the Apex pronouncing it porpoising. Professional.
Just like tortoising, they're going too slow. That's the problem. It's too slow. So let's take it down a slightly personal route. I don't know how personal it is. Obviously, myself and Tony had a conversation along the lines of what do you do for exercise, and how does that link into for want of a better way of putting it, how does that work for your mental health? Because obviously me and Tony had a conversation about how we could see that there was a direct link between things that you do from an exercise perspective that covers all forms of exercise, you know, getting the heart rate above a certain amount, and how that impacts our mental health. So, runner, horse racer, gym rat, what is it? Just literally, I watch what I eat, so I don't have to do any of that nonsense.
Oh no, I do all that so that I don't have to watch what I eat.
Yes.
I like my pizzas. Look, granted, don't get me wrong. During the COVID kind of thing, the lockdown, gym shut, blah 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 blah. Yeah, I put on a bit of weight. Not massive amounts, but you know, I look back at pictures now, it's just like shit. But I've always liked my pizzas, so it was that kind of right. I need to look at what habits I've got, and now I work in a call centre. Luckily, not luckily for me, but luckily for everyone who's listening, who'll still want to listen when I explain it. I'm not one of the ones who's on the phones. You know, could be ringing you at whatever time or anything else like that. I'm one of the support functions in the background. Who works around compliance and blah blah blah. I'm not going to bore you with that, Jesus. So you can go onto a call floor and you can guarantee there'll be a desk full of sweets and energy drinks and Coke and all that kind of stuff, because you know, if you give them all that kind of sugary goodness, get their energy up, and you can guarantee your sales are going to come flying in. But I found myself grazing. Because I do quite a lot, I'm walking around checking areas, making sure people are behaving and stuff like that. I'll go buy a desk or something, I'll get a chocolate bar, I'll just say to the ops guys, oh, I'm just going to pinch a chocolate bar. And that was happening quite a lot, so like, right, I need to stop the grazing. Then I need to get into the gym. And we had a gym at work, so I was going to my gym, and then I was going to the gym at work on my lunch. And it was just a way to wind down. I think you and Tony both said it on the episode that you was both on. It stops everything. Everything switches off outside of the gym or anything else like that. It's all gone. Yeah. Bills don't exist. Yeah. Work stress doesn't exist. It's all gone. And I struggle to find places where that happens now, because, well, yeah, I just need those kind of places where I can switch off. And one of them's a gym. I think the other one's golf. I mean, Charlie, now she's become a golf widow. You know, I can be like, oh, I'm just going to go out for a game of golf, and she won't see me for 5 to 6 hours. And she don't understand why. She's like, but you're just walking around, I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, but I'm walking around and there's nothing. You don't even hear traffic. It's, yeah.
You were saying before about the NFL. It's like rugby mixed with chess. Like I've always said, the people that don't understand golf are the ones that don't understand that it's the people that say that golf's not a sport, and I'm like, golf is as much a sport as a lot of other things, but it's another one of those things that the problem is solved with your head as well as your physical being. So you look at you know, you're halfway down the fairway, you've got a bit of a dogleg right, you know the flag's over there, you just don't know quite where because you've got a lot of trees. So you need to either work on the principle that you're gonna like chip down and then play it onto the green, or you're going to try and go over those trees. If you're going over, you need something with a bit of loft. So it's like, well, can I make that? You know, is this 9 iron going to get me over those trees? Do I need to drop it to an 8? where's the ball sitting? It's like a little bit in the rough, but you know, is it going to be better to punch over? Or, and it's that.
Yeah.
To then step up to the ball, set your body, set your feet, set your grip, set your club. Do you take a practice swing? Some people don't believe in a practice swing, because what if that practice swing was the swing that you needed to do it, and your next one's not going to be good enough? And all of that's going on whilst you're walking around essentially a field with your mates, having a laugh. And like you've said, the one thing that's not going in, because there's no space for it, is, shit, I got that bill to pay. How am I going to get the money to sort the car out at the end of the month? Because I know it's going to need 2 new tyres, probably 3, and if it needs 3, I might as well stick 4 on it, because why not? And I can't even afford 1 tyre right now. Dog needs to go to the vet. Brilliant. Another thing I could do without, I've got that thing that's due on Monday. Can I push it back a couple of... There's no room for that. No room for that. Because you need to know if you can hit a 9-iron 80 yards.
And that's it. And it's like you said, you don't have time to think. And you're setting up for the club. You stood above the ball. You've got your set and grip sorted out. And in them, 2 seconds it takes to swing the club back and then forward, all you're hearing in your head is, don't move your head, don't lift your head, bend your knee a little bit. Now
eyes on the ball, eyes on the ball, eyes on the ball, eyes on the ball. Shit.
Yeah, all that's going on in like a split second, and you're just like... But it sounds awful, because I mean, anyone who hasn't suffered with any mental or anything else like that, they might look at it and the way we describe it, we get away, all the problems go away. It sounds like we're running away, but we're not. It's self-maintenance. And I said it to Jan, I went, look, I need that getaway, otherwise I'm screwed. I mean, the other year when I was back in the pit, like I said, I didn't know. I mean, I'd gone to a friend's Halloween party and just sat in the corner and speak to anybody, and I didn't even know I did that. And Charlie said that for that entire year, she felt like she was treading on eggshells around me, because she never knew, was it going to be James who comes home, or is it going to be an angry, grumpy James, or what? And now she's just got that annoying shit who comes home every day and is clearly spent the entire commute home from work thinking, how can I wind up my wife tonight? But I need that. I need that little getaway, because that way I can just switch off. And in that time when I'm switched off, I don't know it at the time, but a lot of the problems that I've got, how am I going to pay for this bill? Am I going to have to replace 3 tyres or anything else like that? I'm probably solving in the back of my head, and it's done. It makes life easier.
Yeah, and from a male mental health side of things, there's a lot that goes unsaid. There's I can never remember whether it's considered like an epidemic of the fact that male suicide rates are through the roof and nobody talks about it, and that's the problem. Nobody talks about any of it, and men of a certain age group are dying left, right, and centre, and nobody's talking about it, and that's the problem, because nobody's talking about anything. And to say, I need to go in that room and I need to lift that heavy thing and I need to count to 10 and I need to do it 4 times, and for that 1 hour of that day I'm not being a man. And being a man is all that other stuff we were talking about. Oh man, I've got can I get, it's like, oh, can I get to the shops to get the thing that I need for tea tonight before I need to do the other 4 things I've got on my to-do list? And which to-do, is it that to-do list, or does that one supersede that one because I wrote that one a day ago, but that's newer? And people, not everybody understands that every single minute of every single day is processing. When you're at work, you're processing the stuff that you've got to process at work, but you're also processing the stuff, the number of times you'll be doing something work-wise and then you go, oh, damn it, I never did that thing. I use reminders on my phone, like
Yeah.
come tomorrow morning, if I go into my reminders, it'll be like 2 pages. And some of them are silly things, like, remember to take your cod liver oil tablet. That's good. Reason I have a reminder? Because I forgot to take it this morning. It's fine. I have 2 reminders that go off on a Monday. So that just demonstrates how I need them and how useless they are. And that's just one of about 15 different things that I needed to remember to do today. And, I wrote a reminder, James questions. Because I wrote the questions last night, but I wanted to make sure that they were nice and tight for this evening. So I set a reminder for 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Because 11 o'clock I'm going to be fresher, but 4 o'clock I've had all day to think about it, and I just need to tighten up this or that. 2 reminders for the same thing, just to be on the safe side. So I played an obscene amount of golf 12 years ago, and then these small human-like creatures come along and they go, guess what sport you don't do anymore? And you're like, but weekends. It's like, yeah, this guy. And there is a large spider in my shed that uses my golf clubs a lot more than I do. But getting out on the golf course, 3.5, 4 hours. You have a drink and something to eat afterwards, and it's just one giant reset button. So gym routine. We've talked golf. We understand how golf works. What is it? Is it the big heavy weights? Is it those little purple weights for the boxer size? Kettlebell swings? Resistance bands, yes.
No.
Dwayne Johnson uses them. They're all good.
It's the weights. Dumbbells, barbells, the machines. Yeah, and it's funny because I'm doing it because I want to stay in shape. Like I said earlier, I'm doing that so I can stop my pizza with a bag of M&Ms on a Friday night and treat myself on a Saturday and stuff like that. But typical bloke, everything becomes a competition, and a lot of the time it becomes a competition with yourself. So it's like, I don't know, you go in and you bench 60 and you do 8 reps and all that kind of thing. And you don't go in there the week after thinking, I'm gonna. So I did that right. Well, I'm gonna. Typical bloke thing. You don't think, I'll just go up by 2 kilo, which would make sense. It's like, I'm gonna go up 10 or 20 and cause yourself an injury or something like that. It's amazing how we learn things very slowly over time. But yeah, nice weights. It's always got to be the weights. The only thing I'll do at the start on every workout that I do is I'll get the resistance bands out and I'll just stretch them that way. But that's more because rotary cuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting all the injuries setting a lot easier.
Yeah. With age comes like every injury that you've ever. I'm dealing with a thing at the moment where, like you say, rotary cuff sort of thing. But it's decided, it's like, I'm going to remind you of all the injuries you've ever suffered in your entire life. So like the knee's gone, the shoulder's gone, the back's gone, the sciatica's playing up. I'm like, I was walking around the office today and one of my mates was like, can you come and have a look at this? And I'm like, so I got up and I hobbled all the way over and he was like, I didn't need you for anything, I just like watching you walk around the office. I was like, you
nice.
He's like, you look ridiculous.
I swear blind, I woke up, I turned 40 this year, and I swear blind, I woke up on my 40th birthday with a bad back.
It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. You wake up like, why does everything hurts. What happened? Did anybody get the number of that truck that hit me in my sleep? What? I can't turn right anymore. What's happening?
You can't turn your neck, you're like that. Great, I've got to drive to work, and I'm going to have to look both ways before I turn at a junction. She's like, what the hell? Yeah, it's like
You go from that tube of deep heat that you've had in your house for 18 years that's got like 2/3 of it left and it's all crinkly and mushed up, to going out and buying the tube of industrial deep heat because you're just coated in the stuff like some kind of glistening, hobbling mutant of some description, and you're like, welcome to thought. Oh no, I can't put me up. It's just, it's don't ever get old. And I can happily tell you with 3 whole years of experience on you, it gets worse every year.
no, good.
When I get dressed on a morning to go out the door for a run and I have to put the knee support on, or if I have to go and do something in the gym and it's like knee support, shoulder support, and I've got to make sure that I've got the heat pack as well that goes with the shoulder support. And all I was saying to the good lady the other day, I was like, all I hear when I put all this stuff on is more machine now than man. And I was just like, what is happening here? Because now I'm like, maybe I need like an elbow. Just bring on the artificial limb replacement, because then we can really start to get work done.
Wow.
So, big heavy things in the gym, playing around the golf. All sounds amazing to me. My golf clubs swear at me when I go past the window. So at least somebody's getting out for a round. Mate of mine is very much into the golf and regales me with many stories of rounds of golf that I've missed. Obviously, we've alluded to, and James set his safe word as zucchini bread. I'm not entirely sure why it was, but I'm not here to argue with people's safe word. We've danced around the mental health side of things, and obviously I spoke to Tony about podcasting, mental health. You've spoken about how you were in a particular place and now you're less in that particular place. I suppose the question is, how has podcasting helped you and your mental health over the last couple of years? You've done 2 seasons of a podcast. It's a very successful podcast, as we saw last week from our Spotify roundup. Not only is it a very popular podcast, it drives a lot of traffic to the podcast as a whole, and gets us a lot more viewers / listeners. So big up the Straight to the Apex podcast. So yeah. We don't have to get too deep if you don't want to. We don't have to get too far in the weeds or whatever. But podcasting, mental health, how do the 2 things go together for you? I mean, we've already touched on it. We've already spoken about it, but
It's probably going to sound a bit cliche, because I'm genuinely going to say it's the talking, because I know we talk about Andy's Men's Club and stuff like that, and it's okay to talk, but it genuinely is that. I mean, we've already touched on it with the gym, with golf. You go and play around a golf, you've got at the most 3 of your buddies with you, and granted, you don't have a conversation, but there is small talk, so something like that might come up. In the gym, you've got your spotter, granted you're counting to 10, or he's just telling you, come on, you can do more than that, and all that kind of, but again, in between, there's those little chats. The other thing for me was walking as well. I'd start going for a walk at work with one of my friends on our breaks, and it gave me the opportunity to be able to rant, and that's how that helped me out. But with the podcast as well, just having Mark and Tony there, which was, again, a normality that I'd missed for probably a good year, really, to all of a sudden seeing them every week or every other week and just having a laugh and winding up Mark or reminding Tony that, you know, he gambled and he lost on one episode of the podcast every other week.
That's 22.
But just seeing two good friends and talking to them, and even though we've never done it in the same room, and I keep wanting to, you know, figure out how we'd make it work and get us all in the same area and do a podcast recording together. It's still there, and it genuinely just feels like the three of us are just in a pub or something, just having a quick catch up. And 9 times out of 10, we start having a rant about something else, and sometimes we actually talk about Formula One.
Yeah, like Tony sort of. I think Tony was the first person, from what I remember, to bring up the chatting in a pub analogy for especially your podcast, and it was that first sort of time where I was like, yeah, and I've said it, you know, I've said it many times over. There was an episode of the Straight to the Apex podcast that I truly believe and still believe is one of the most important podcast episodes there's ever been in all of podcasting. To actually take that time, it was a good 20 minutes to talk about the importance of podcasting, the importance of talking to your mates, the importance to take the time to get together, to just talk and laugh and take the piss out of each other and have that. And I was just like, there was points where I was laughing, there was points where I was almost in tears, there was points where I was like, I felt seen and all of that sort of stuff, and I was like, this is one of the most, you know, I am a man who listens to a fair few podcasts, and it's not just ones that I have to, you know, edit and put out myself. I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's a thing. And of all the podcasts that I've ever listened to, that podcast was important. It was a message for anybody and everybody to listen to say, you might not be sitting with a microphone in front of you, but you need to get together with your mates and laugh, shoot the shit, take the piss, and keep everyone, you know, keep us all here is the big one. So yeah, the technological gods are back, telling me that I have to make a decision, and I've already made it. And the decision is, I'm going to keep some questions. I'm going to keep some powder dry. So I'm going to close that off, keep those in the bank, because from my perspective, I'd like you to come back for another episode where we can talk more about some of the questions that I haven't asked you. What I will say is this: me and Tony had a conversation about maybe doing something a little bit more on the reg, because Straight to the Apex has gone into its hibernation phase, its recharge phase. You've talked about the importance of podcasting. Tony's talked about the importance of podcasting. I'll always get a podcast going. I've said to Tony, maybe we need to get something, like, say, regular in the books, once a fortnight, once a month, maybe even once a week, where it is just a get together, talk, laugh, joke, make fun, whatever. I've always said, you know, I wanted to do something along the lines of a mental health podcast anyway, and that doesn't have to be, you know, we're here to talk about this aspect of mental health. Maybe it's just we're here to talk about the funny thing we saw on the way to the shops today. So, James, it's my job at this point in time to tell you that I'm super happy that you were able to come on as a guest. I can't obviously say it more than I've said in the past. I am the number one Straight to the Apex fan, and apparently I have a lot of competition for that role because the numbers don't lie. Big thank you to you for joining me. Big thank you to you for trusting me with your podcast and putting it out sometimes right week in, week out. As we've seen today, technical issues can happen any time, and they'll always happen at the worst time. So yes. Hopefully you'll come back. Hopefully you'll do another one of these. Hopefully we can get something. I'm saying this now. Podcast live. I'm just saying it. Podcast live.
Bring it. If you can make the tech work, mate, I'm there.
I'll get my suit out. I'll get my dressing gown on, and we'll all meet in the same place at the same time. And
I can hear the nervousness from Mark already.
At this point in time, it's time to throw the gauntlet down, because there's one man who is yet to fulfil his guesting duties, and I'm sure right now he's listening, going, "Shit." So, Mark, where are you? We need you. We need the trifecta. James, big thank you to you for joining me. Big thank you to the lovely people for joining us. We, the collective, will see you next time, and I will see you shortly. Until then, it's bye from me. And it's bye from this guy.
From me.
There he is. There we go. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.
See you later.
So there we go. What do you think of that? Fantastic episode. I think you'll agree. Big thank you to James for joining me. Yeah. Just a great episode. I loved it. It's two of the three. I don't know. They're like straight to the apex Pokemon. You've got to catch them all. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. If I can ask you to do a few things before you go, which really help the podcast out: like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. Tell us how much you enjoyed this episode. Do you want to see more special episodes? That is it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
How awesome is that? So awesome. You gotta like, share and subscribe.